12.8 basic advanced graphs of trig functions. So the first couple of these problems are just like the last lesson, so just the basic graphs of them, because this is the first step to doing the advanced graphs. So start with this first one here. 4 sine of 2x, my amplitude is 4, and period to 2 pi over b. My b is right here, so 2 pi over 2, which is just pi. So I'm going to go up to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go down to 4, so right here. My period is pi, so I'm going to end over here. And we're going to start at 0. So that's kind of the little box that my original graph is going to go in. It's a sine graph. Sine graph starts in the middle. So start here. We end the exact same spot, halfway in between. Now halfway in between these two is my highest point. So it'd be like right here. Halfway between these two is my lowest point. So right around here. Then you just kind of connect the graph. And I'm very bad at doing this part of it, especially on the tablet. That's not that bad. And then I want it for, I think it says for the given domain, so they want me to do the whole interval, so I'm just going to do it again. Alright, that's another pi. Start here and there. I'm going to go a little faster this time because I know what it looks like already. So this is the other rotation. So there we go. This one, if x equals -3 sine x, now my amplitude is still 3. Remember, amplitude is always positive. Period to 2 pi over b, which is 2 pi over 1, so just 2 pi. So we're going to go up as far as 3, and as low as -3. And then my period's 2 pi, so I'm going to end at 2 pi. We're going to start at 0. So that's the little box my graph's going to fit in. We are doing a sine graph, so we start at the origin, and at the origin, halfway. Now this is where negative comes in, right? It's a negative in front, so it's a vertical shift. So instead of going up and then down, we're going to go down and then up. So halfway between these 2 points is my lowest this time. Halfway these two is my highest. So that's me kind of like this. That's my best try. Next one's the cosine graph. So my amplitude is 2, my period's 2 pi over b, there's no b, so 2 pi. B is 1, I should say. So my amplitude could go as high as 2 up, and as low as 2 down. My period's 2 pi, so we're in right there, and we're starting at 0. So right, that's the little box my graph's going to be in. It's a cosine graph, so it always starts at the amplitude. So we're starting at 2, we always end the exact same spot. Halfway for cosine is the lowest. Then halfway between these two is where you cross. And then we just try to, now remember, cosine's kind of like a U. It's like a sine graph, right? It's all about how you see it. Like right here is kind of our cosine graph. So I say that, so try not to make it like a straight line. It's all kind of curvy. There we go. Ish. Ooh, that right side's a little straight. But I'm trying. Next one. You see it's a different graph. That's probably there on purpose. So let's look at this one. -3 cosine. So my amplitude, again, it's always a positive. It's just 3. My period's 2 pi over b. In this case, 2 pi is pi. So I just get 2. So, as we go as high as 3, you go as low as -3. My period's 2. So that right there, that little box right there is where my cosine graph is. My first one. I could do a lot of them. So let's graph it. It's cosine. So let's start at the amp. Now this is a -3, so we're going to start at the negative amp. We'll always end at the exact same spot. Halfway, in this case, will be the highest. Halfway between is where you cross. So kind of like this. Right? And so that's one period. If I want to fill up the whole thing, I'll just do it again. There's another. Right there, halfway is the highest. Kind of go like that. Those are some bad graphs. Right here, another 2. So kind of go like this. Not my best effort, but that's the idea. Right, just keep on going every 2. So those are the basic ones. Now let's do some ones that have shifts in them. So this right here, you can see it's on the inside. Inside we call it a phase shift. So just like every other graph, inside opposite. So now all I want to do in these problems is actually find the shift. We're not going to graph it, we'll graph it next time. So the first one, phase shift here, we're going to go negative pi over 2. Inside opposite. My amp is 2. My period is 2 pi over b. There is no b, so just 2 pi. And there's no vertical shift. I probably just put 0. It's the same thing. This is a no solution. Empty set. My amp here is 1/2. Look like I don't know the graph that. My phase shift is inside opposite, so plus pi over 2. That outside is the vertical shift, or I like to say the new middle. So plus 4. My period's 2 pi over, it's 2 pi. Going to this one, period, no amp. Period is 2 pi over nothing, so just 2 pi. Phase shift is plus pi over 3. Now what's different about this one? Let's talk about how to find the ending value. So we're gonna our phase shift is where you want to start. We want to start at pi over 3. How do you figure out where you end? Well, all we have to do is add the period. So in this case, we'll add where I start, phase shift, plus the period 2 pi. Now to add those, I need a common denominator because we all love fractions so much. So b times 3 over 3. So the top right here would be 6 pi over 3 plus the 1 pi over 3. It'll give me 7 pi over 3. So if I was going to graph this function, I would start up the phase shift pi over 3 and I would end at 7 pi over 3. Amplitude on this one. Amplitude's 2. What's the vertical shift? Vertical shift is 4. So what's your new middle? Like I always say, you normally do sine cosine graph, you start at 0. So if we move it up 4, that's my new middle. So it's kind of like if I have a graph, I'm going to start at 4. That's kind of like my new middle. What's the highest I could go to? Well, my amp is 2, so I could go 2 above it. So 4 plus 2 is 6. And what's the lowest I could go? I could go, well, again, my middle is 4. I could go 2 down also. So 4 minus 2 is 2. You go 2 above and 2 below. And so that's how you do a vertical shift. It's your new middle, and then you go the amp up and down. The way you do a phase shift is that's where you start, and then you gotta add the period to figure out where you end. So let's put it all together to do some graphing. So let's answer all these questions here. Okay, so first, what's the amp? Amp is 3. What's the phase shift? How much we move left and right? We're going to move negative pi over 3. Period, 2 pi over b. Oops. So 2 pi over b. My b is 2, so just pi. And my vertical shift is nothing, and I have none, so 0. So let's do first where we're going to start and we're going to end. We're starting at negative pi over 3. And all we're going to do is add the period to it. So the period is pi. Common denominator. 3 pi plus negative pi gets me 2 pi over 3. So I'm going to start at negative pi over 3. And at 2 pi over 3. So that's my little box there. Since my middle is 0, my highest I could go is just the amp. I go plus 3 and down 3. Right, because I'm starting at 0. I could go plus 3 and down 3. So there's that little box that we always talk about. That's where my graph's going to be. It's a sine graph, so we know sine graphs start at the origin. Again, we start the phase shift. And there, halfway between. You can do the math on it, add them up and divide by 2. It's probably just easier to eyeball it. It's going to be like right here. Halfway between pi over 3 and 0, so pi over 6 probably. Halfway between these two is my highest, so like around here. Halfway between these two is my lowest. I went way too high on that first one. I went all the way up there. I should stop right here. There we go. Had to be within the box. So there we go. And then you just graph it. So there we go. It's a sine graph. We moved to the left pi over 3 and we moved up 0. I guess we didn't move it up at all. We moved it up 0. So again, that's only one rotation. If I want to keep on going on and on, right? Just add another period, add another pi for my period to get pi plus 2 pi over 3 would get me 5 pi over 3. So it'll be over here, and I just do another rotation. I'm just gonna do it kind of sketchy. You can keep on going, sending going backwards. Minus another pi and minus another pi. So, but that's the main graph right there. So next one only has a vertical shift, no phase shift on this one. So my amp is 3, my period is 2 pi over 1, so just 2 pi. There's no phase shift, but there's a vertical shift of 1. Look how easy the phase shift is. I start at 0, you add the period, 2 pi, you end at 2 pi. Nice. Like that. My new middle is vertical shift your new middle, so you start at 1. So like this is kind of like your middle now. So 1's your middle. And then my amp is 3, so I could go up 3. So 1 plus 3 would be 4. And then 1 minus 3 would be negative 2. Right, so from 1, you go up 3, 1, 2, 3 to 4, or you go down 3, 1, 2, 3 to negative 2. So that's my little box. And then we do cosine. Remember, cosine starts at the amp. So right here, ends at the amp, ends at the same spot, I should say. Halfway between my lowest, which is right here. And halfway between is where you cross. Now it's not at the x-intercept, it's at your middle. So right here. That's anything over there. Then draw your cosine function. Something to that effect. That might be my best one. So there we go. So that's a cosine graph moved up. Now we're going to put it together. Move it up, down, left, and right. Or right, I should say. So let's do this one. The amp is 2. The period is 2 pi over 3. So that's my B right there. Phase shift, we're moving plus pi over 3. And vertical shift, we're going negative 2. So we're going to move it to the right pi over 3 right here. And my vertical shift has been negative 2. We're going to start, that's my middle right here. So let's do the normal thing. So our starting value, we start at the period. Sorry, we start at the phase shift, pi over 3. That's where we start. Always at the phase shift. You add the period, which happens to be 2 pi over 3. How nice. They add easily. You get 3 pi over 3. Or just pi. So if we're starting at pi over 3, we're ending at pi. So it's short, but at least it was a nice adding fractions. My new middle, always the vertical shift. So negative 2 is my new middle. So we start at negative 2. And all we do from there is go the amp up and down. So my amp is 2, so I could go 2 above this, which get me 0. And 2 below this, which get me negative 4. Right, so this is a negative 2 plus the amp. And negative 2 minus the amp to get the lowest. So this is my little box right there. Then we're going to graph a sine function. Remember, sine starts at the middle, so we're going to start right here at our new middle. We're going to end at the middle also, so right there. Halfway in between is right across. Halfway between the first two is my highest, so like right here. Halfway between these two is my lowest, so right there. Let me connect them. Something like that. Again, I could keep on going, draw another period, add another 2 pi over 3 to get something over here. Well, it's like two things, so like right here. I could keep on going if I want to. And the same thing backwards. But that's the basic one. The next one. So here, the amp is negative 1. Remember, we don't do negatives, so it's just we don't do negatives for amp. So amp is actually just 1. It just lets us know we're going to flip this graph. Our phase shift is inside opposite, so pi over 4. I didn't ask about the amp or the period. Let me do it on the side here. Actually, I did ask about the amp. I didn't ask about the period. Let me do it on the side here. 2 pi over b. My b is 2. So 2 pi over 2 gets me pi. That's my period. I asked about vertical shift. Vertical shift is 2. So that's going to be our new middle. Our starting value is going to be pi over 4. We're going to add our period, which is pi. I need a common denominator, so 4 over 4. 1 pi plus 4 pi gets me 5 pi over 4. So we're going to start at pi over 4, which is like right here, halfway between pi over 2 and 0. We're in at 5 pi over 4, which is right here, halfway between 3 pi and 2 pi. Wait, my mistake, over here. It's a little too far. This is pi or 4 over 4, and this would be 5 pi over 4, so right here. if you count by 4s. So pi over 4, 2 pi over 4 is this pi over 2, 3 pi over 4, 4 over 4, 5 over 4. It's right there. So that's where we're stopped. That's where we're ending. Our new middle is 2 because of vertical shift. And what's the highest we could go? Well, again, amplitude is just 1. So we go 1 above it and 1 below it. So 3 and 1. So 1, 2, 3. And then 1. Remember, because 2 is our new middle. It's right there. So that's the box where our graph's going to fit into. Keep in mind, it is a negative cosine, so we're going to flip it. So it's turn on the bottom amp right here. And the same spot, half between my highest. Half between those 2 points is where I cross. So right there, again, cross my middle. And this side, and then you just graph it. So there you go. Again, if you want, you can keep on going. These graphs are reciprocal. These graphs are sequential graphs. Keep on going. Something like that. Now let's go backwards. If I give you a graph, how do you find all this stuff? Now it's not as bad as it looks. The key to doing this is first is find the middle. That's the key. I guess let's fill out the stuff first. So let's figure out what the max is. The max is 3, super easy. So there's my max. What's my min? Right here, -1. And then find the middle. Again, to me, this is a key to all this. If you can do this, you can do the rest. So the middle is always the same thing. How do you find the middle of 2 things? You add them up and divide by 2. So take the max, take the min, divide by 2. So here will be 3 plus -1 over 2. So that'll be 2 over 2, which is 1. So my middle is 1. Why is that so important? Because the middle is also your vertical shift, which is 1. And once you find your middle, you can find the amp really easily. How far is it from the amp to the max? Or, sorry, from the middle to the max, or from the middle to the min? It's 2. Period just never changes, just like before. If you want to find the period, you gotta pick a point. So let's start up here. And then how long does it take to reset? Looks like it's pi equals the period. In that case, I gotta find my b. Remember, the way you find the b is always the same thing. Period equals 2 pi over b. In this case, I know the period's pi. So pi equals 2 pi over b. You could cross multiply if you need b. And then divide by pi. And b equals 2. So now I have everything we need. Right, I have my k, that's my middle, so 1. I have my b, which is 2, we just found it. And I have my amp, 2. So there's my equation. 2 cosine 2x plus 1. Find the max and min of the following. So all I want you to do is find the max and min of this guy. Well, think about it this way. What's my middle? 1, right? How do you get the max? Well, you add the amp to the min. You add the amp to the middle. We'll give you your min, your max. I can't talk right now. So my amp is 3, my middle is 1, so I get 4. Right? So if I have a graph and I say, hey, 1's the middle and the amp's 3, could go 3 up or 3 down. So 1 minus 3 give me the min, which is -2. Just go to the middle, plus or minus the amp. That's how you find these things. Okay, let's do a better job of explaining that, because that first one was terrible. I want to find the maximum of this guy. So again, you want to find the middle first. And that's the vertical shift, so -1. I'm meant to circle the negative, so we're already off the bad start. Just like that, right? If you want to find the maximum, all you have to do is get the middle and plus and minus the amp. That's all we're doing here. So my middle is -1. What's the amp? The amp is 4. So -1 plus 4 would be 3. That would be my max. -1 minus 4 would be -5. That would be my min. So it's always easy to find the max and min on a sine graph. You just go, what's the middle? Add the amp, subtract the amp. Next problem. A buoy makes a swimming area in the lake. The buoy marking some area in a lake oscillates each time a speedboat goes by. If the distance d in feet from the bottom of the lake is given by the following formula, where t is time per second. Graph the function, describe the maximum distances the buoy from the bottom of the lake to the top when a boat passes by. So if they want to graph this, so you go like this. My vertical shift is 12, so let's say where 12 is right there. That's my middle. My amp is 1.8, so you go 1.8 above that, so let's say about 2, and you could go 2 below that. What's my period? Period equals 2 pi over b. So in this case, my period is 2 pi over 3 pi over 4. I know that looks disgusting, but remember, this is just a divide sign. So just rewrite it. 2 pi divided by 3 pi over 4. So that's 2 pi times the reciprocal. Look what happens. Pi's cancel. I get 8 over 3. Not much better. This is that's 8 over 3. So I'm going over there, going here, and there. There's kind of my little graph. It's a sine graph. You start in the middle, and at the middle, halfway in between, go up, go down. So this is my basic graph of that thing. Not the best, but eh. What's what they want to know? Describe the maximum distances of the buoy from the bottom to the top of the lake when it passes by. So I guess they want to know the height is. Well, if I know my amp, so if I know my middle is 12, right? To find the max, it's going to go 12 plus my amp, 1.8, and get 13.8. My min, same idea. Get your middle, subtract the amp, you get 10.2. And there we go. That's the max and min. We'll build had the 12 twists. Actually, I don't think that's true anymore, but it was definitely true at the time. Suppose the Ferris wheel has a diameter of approximately 520 feet. It makes one complete revolution in 30 minutes. Suppose the lowest car on the Ferris wheel is 5 feet from the ground. Let the height of the top of the car be represented by time 0. Write an equation of the height of the car function. So we have a Ferris wheel. That's my crude drawing of Ferris wheel. And they tell us a couple things. Right here, one complete revolution is 30 minutes. That's your period. Period equals 30 minutes. Done. The diameter of the Ferris wheel is 520 feet. So from here to here is 520. And it's 5 feet off the ground. So this is 5 feet. Okay, so it's everything I know. Oh, and they said the little cars starts up right here. So first, I want to know if it's a sine graph or a cosine graph. Well, if you start on top, then you come down, right? If you start on top, then you're coming down, and then you're coming back up, it's going to be a cosine graph. So it'll be something like this. Right, since that effect, I need to find my amp. I need to find my period, or my B, and my period, and I need to find vertical shift. So this is what's going on. First, the amp. So here's my graph, right? It's going like this, going down, then back up. So it's kind of like that. What's the middle? Right here. That'll be the middle of this graph. So how do you find that? Well, it should be the radius from the center to the radius, and then plus the floor, right? It should be this part, which is half the diameter. So that'd be 520 divided by 2. Which should be, where am I at? 260. So it should be 260. Right, so go 260 up, 260 down. It's just the radius of the circle. Plus though, since I'm trying to find the middle, plus this part right here, plus the little bottom. So 265. That's how high up it is. So go from here to here is 260 plus 5. So that's my K. Now what's the amp? It's how high and low you go, right? So if I'm going, what's the lowest it goes? The circle. The lowest it goes right here. Highest it goes is right there. The amp is just 260. Right? You can only go 260 up and 260 down. Because that's the radius of the circle. So my amp is just 260. 260 in both directions. Now I got to find out what B is. Well, B has to do with the period, right? Period equals 2 pi over B. Well, I already know my period. It's 30. So 30 equals 2 pi over B. So cross multiply. I get 30B equals 2 pi. Divided by 30. B equals pi over 15. So there's my answer. well, I'm going to rewrite it to make it a little easier to see. Y equals 260 cosine of pi over 15 x plus 265. Something like that. Next one. During 1 month, outside temperature fluctuates between 40 degrees Fahrenheit and 50 degrees Fahrenheit. The cosine curve approximates the changes in temperature with the high of 50 degrees Fahrenheit between each days. Okay, so they're saying, that's kind of hard to draw, but the max is 50, the lowest is 40, right? And they're fluctuating between these two. It's going like this. Because I draw a cosine graph because it said cosine. Determine the amplitude, period, and midline for each of the approximate temperature on one day 8. So it's one equation. That's all they want. Y equals a cosine b x plus k. That's all they want. It's kind of like the last problem, but just now we go as high as 50 as low as 40. So what they always say, I'm not sure if I always said it, I should have went in this lesson. I always like to start off with the middle. Find k. So how do you find the middle? Well, you have your max right here is 50, and your lowest is 40. So add them up and divide by 2. So you get 90 divided by 2 is 45. That is my middle. That's the key to all these going backwards problems. Figure out what your middle is. So that's my vertical shift, right? What's my amp? Well, it's the amp from the middle to the top. So what's my amp from here to here? Well, 45 to 50 is 5. So there you go. There's my amp. Now I just got to find one thing. What's B? So during 1 month, so I'm guessing 30 days, the outside temperature flux between, that's probably not good. Between 40 and 50 days, the curve change in temperature with the high of 40 is reached every 4 days. Okay, so there we go. So every 4 days, my period is 4 days. So we're gonna do the same thing we did before. How do I find my period? Period is 2 pi over b. 4 equals 2 pi over b. Cross multiply. I get 4b equals 2 pi. Divide by 4. B equals pi over 2. So there's my equation. Y equals 5 cosine pi over 2 x plus 45. Write a cosine function. I did that. Sketch the graph of the function. I kind of did that. I'm not going to do it anymore. I spent the temperature on the 7th day. So I would just have to sub in 7. I don't have space. Now this works a lot nicer if I do a nice graph. If I had a nice graph, I'd just go to 7 and see where to hit. That'd be my answer. I don't have a nice graph, so I have to do it by hand. I didn't mean to highlight. I want to erase. Erase. I just come pressing the wrong thing. Okay. Come on. So I got sub in 7. 5 cosine of 7 pi over 2 plus 45. 7 pi over 2. Cosine 7 pi over 2. Remember I always say, okay, so I'll say that again. 0, here's pi over 2, here's pi. 3 pi over 2, 4 pi over 2, also known as 2 pi. So this will be 5 pi over 2, 6 pi over 2, 7 pi over 2. So right here, what's the cosine value? Cosine is the x value, so this is all 0. 0, because 5 times 0 is 0, that's why. So I get 45. So that's the temperature on the 7th day. It's 45 degrees. Okay, last couple and then we are done. So it's more graphing. Make sure we know how to do these. Oh, secant graphs. That's going to be fun. Secant and cosecant. So remember, the way to graph a secant graph is really just graph the reciprocal function, which is sine. Oh, sorry, cosine in this case. So you graph the reciprocal function. And then we're just going to then you just jazz it up. So cosine 3 cosine of pi over 2 x plus 1. So my amp is 3. My phase shift is -1. It's at opposite, -1. My period is 2 pi over 2. So a fancy period. So 2 pi divided by pi over 2. Also known as 2 pi times reciprocal. So these cancel, I just get 4. That's fun. In my vertical shift, I don't see 1. So 0, right? There's nothing out here or in front, so 0. Our starting value is -1. Our period is 4, so we end at 3. That's nice. So we're going to start at -1, and we're going to end at 3. Like that. My middle is 0 still because there's no phase vertical shift. There's no vertical shift. And then my amp is 3. So 3 up and 3 down. So there's my little box. And then we're going to draw cosine. Remember, cosine starts with the amp, so we'll start right here. And at the amp, half. So same thing. Halfway is my lowest. Halfway should be 1. In between these two is where I cross. So there and there. Now again, we're doing a secant graph, so I'm going to draw this kind of dotted. So that's my secant graph. Remember, the way it works is to go from, that's my cosine graph. So go from cosine to secant. You add two things. First, you add asymptotes at the x-intercepts, or what I like to say the midpoint, or the new middle. So right here, right where you cross your x-intercept originally. And then you add parabolas at the maximum. So right here and right here. And there is my secant graph. And again, your secant graph is this part, those parabolas. That's this last one here, cosecant. So again, we're going to draw, all we have to do is graph the reciprocal function, so it's sine in this case. So my amp is 3, my phase shift is negative 3 pi over 2. My period is 2 pi over b. My b here is 2. So just pi. My vertical shift is right there is 1. So all that good stuff. Amp 3, period is 2 pi over b, my period is 2. Phase shift inside opposite, and my vertical shift is out there. My starting value is my phase shift, negative 3 pi over 2. So where we start. Starting all the way over here. I'm going to add my period is pi. So common denominator, I would like to do over 1. So I get negative pi over 2, surrounding right here. My middle is 1, so that's my new middle. So that's where we're starting right here. Like that. What's my highest value? Well, you could add add the amp to the new middle, so you get 1 plus 4, 3 is 4, and 1 minus 3 is negative 2. So go 3 up to 4, and 3 down. Right, so 3 up, 1, 2, 3, sorry, 3 up. So 1, 2, 3. I went a little too high. I thought this was only 4 up, not 5 up. Come on. There we go. Sorry. 1, 2, 3 up right here. And then 3 down. So 1, 2, 3. So again, there's my little box. I'm gonna graph my sine graph first is right there. Remember, sine starts at the origin, so you start where you start. So right here, and at the same spot, halfway between where I cross. In between the first two spots is my highest. In between the last two spots is my lowest. That should be more right in the middle. There we go. And I'm gonna connect it dottedly because this is not the final answer. So something like that. Right, so that's the basic sine graph. And then we're going to draw the cosine graph. So I just add two things. I add asymptotes at where the x-intercept would have been right before you moved it. So just where you cross your new middle. So right here. And right here. And then you add parabolas at the maximums. And those parabolas are your answer. There you go. That's a graphical cosine graph thing. Again, like this before, I keep on going on if I want, but that's the general idea.